All right, welcome to Buzzbeat. This is Brian. We are live on YouTube following the Hornets' final preseason game of 2023, which did not go great for Charlotte, losing to Boston 127 to 99. Somehow that final margin doesn't really even do it justice. That's how that word is said. However, before we dive into that game a little bit more, and also touch on some preseason topics. Let's set the table first. Tonight we are happy to be joined by a returning guest, Darian, better known as Trust the Buzz on YouTube. So to those who are listening live, thank you for joining us, regardless of whatever platform you're tuning in on. And Darian, thanks for hopping back on with us. How's it going, man?
It's going good. I mean, that loss rather did not look good at all. But I'm happy to be here. Happy to talk Charlotte Hornets. I don't know. I don't know how
Yeah.
to feel yet,
Yeah.
but I'm happy to be here at least.
Yeah, if it's like Hornets basketball is back if like morally, ethically, consciously, just like you're just challenged already. It's like the seasons are changing, basketball is here, everything seemingly in the sports world is right when that happens. But yeah, this was we can really quickly touch on the game. And then sort of like one of the like bigger news items that came out of it, but the Hornets fall 127-99. This game was all Boston, really right from the jump. Celtics score almost 1.2 points per possession offensively. The Hornets under 93 points per 100 possessions in this game. A lot of turnovers for Charlotte. Boston, especially in the first half with their starters, really jumped on the offensive glass, 37% offensive rebound rate in the first half. And, obviously, like that's something you don't usually see from a Steve Clifford team. And I would also get the feeling that kind of defensive rebound rate for the Hornets is just going to be like death for them this season. Like they just can't afford to get mauled on the glass like that. That's just not going to be realistic. And look, Boston's awesome. Darian, I don't know where you think of them in terms of like hierarchy of the league, but for me, they're easily like a top 2 to 3 team. And it is wild to see Drew Holiday and Kristaps Porzingis running wild as third and fourth options. I didn't think along with the effort on the defensive glass not being great, I thought in terms of like individual perimeter defense, not great effort from the Hornets tonight. Like Jaylen Brown just, moonwalking to the cup every time he wanted to by PJ a couple of times, but he wasn't the only guy that cooked by Jaylen. But yeah, Darian, impressions from this game, anything that stood out to you tonight?
Oh man, to be honest, I don't know if there's anything that stood out outside of just how bad we were. It was the Hornets of old. That's a lot what it reminded me of. We just weren't. I've said over the last couple of preseason games, I was saying that it's important for us to win these games, or at least try to not take out the players as soon as they're good. Like I felt like what was happening in the previous preseason games, not to talk too much about that before we get into it, but I felt like a big thing was Steve Clifford would see LaMelo, PJ, Terry all do well, then take them out. And now that would kind of be it. And then we'll let RJ Hunter around out there. But this is why I think you should leave them in, because they came out here. And I don't know if they thought they were good. I don't know if they're just maybe looking forward to the season. I could definitely see that being a reason. But there was really nothing that stuck out outside of just how bad we were. In skill, and I wouldn't even say a skill level. Everything that happened tonight was all just mental mishaps and just effort. I don't think I took away anything from this game saying, oh, this person has regressed. This person's not good. It's all mental mistakes that we can fix. It's just as soon as we got popped in the mouth, they just kind of started freestyling again, which considering they usually have a very structured, at least offense, in my opinion, is pretty structured. It seemed that they were just trying to free flow everything, but it just wasn't working. And when you go from free flow into now you have a more structured offense with Steve Clifford back to free flow, and I don't think that's an easy transition, especially to make against in one game. Also considering what you said, especially the Celtics being easily one of the best teams in basketball.
Yeah.
it just doesn't help. So yeah, it was a pitiful game. The only good thing I'll take away from it is that I felt at least a lot of the things were effort based in mental lapse.
Mhm.
So if they want to fix it, they can. It's just a matter of will they bounce back and do that.
Yeah, some of the lapses, like, none of the set plays were really hitting tonight, and some
Mhm.
of that is Boston's defense, its potency, its versatility, and you could even see in the first half. I haven't caught the Celtics in the preseason yet tonight, but they threw like probably 4 or 5 different defenses at the Hornets before halftime, like when the starters were still playing, like some full court press, some half court trap, zone, man-to-man switch, Porzingis in the drop. There was just a lot of different stuff to throw at them, and I thought Derek White's defense tonight was incredible. Like, and it's
He's so
just
good, man.
he's insanely, yeah, he is. He's insanely good, and them having Drew and Derek White as a defensive backcourt is like kind of unfair. Those are just two of the. I mean, name me two defenders under 6'5" better than those two. Like,
Right, right.
there's not many. It's a short list, if any. And obviously, like, Tatum is no slouch, just a help defender, and Porzingis such a deterrent at the rim. I also thought this game, like, this was an interesting game matchup wise that I sort of circled to start because for Mark Williams, like what Porzingis kind of means as like a pure stretch five, right? I mean, man, Porzingis, he'll post some, and obviously he's gonna, like, screen and dive too, but bread and butter for him is going to be pick and pop, slipping screens, spacing the floor. And I thought Williams did an okay job sort of early on being like higher up, closer to the level. If Jason Tatum's coming off that, it's really tough to guard because you got to worry about his pull-up game. And then you've got Porzingis on the pop. And Charlotte tried to ice some of those when they got them on the side. And I thought Williams did an okay job sort of like navigating that mesh point, being present with the ball handler, recovering back out to Porzingis. But that's tough. That's going to be one of the hardest matchup types for a guy like Williams, to have to sort
For
of like
sure.
handle that space. And it's not just Williams. Like, that's a team effort type stuff. You're going to need weak side stunts, rotations, that type of stuff. You saw Charlotte switch those matchups some too, which put Williams on Jaylen Brown or Tatum. That's not really a fair fight for him either. Like, that's just tough. Boston's going to beat up a lot of people with that this year. But I thought it really got dicey for the Hornets when they were using Porzingis as like a spacer. So having him come
Hmm.
off ball means he had a pin down three from like 20 some feet out. It was a moon ball that Williams, I think it was Williams, maybe may have been Thor, but just didn't get out on him quite quickly enough. And then I also thought his ability to space, like the driving lanes that it opened up for Boston, it just felt like too many times someone would turn the corner and it was like LaMelo having to rotate over and test a shot at the rim. It was like, wait, where's the 7-footer? Where's the
Right.
like? It just they scramble the matchups around him, and again with Porzingis, it's simple stuff, but just being able to pull your one source of rim protection 20 feet from the rim just changes things up. And that's obviously really, really tough for Charlotte. So I thought those were a couple of things that sort of jumped out. I would also just touch on, and we'll get into Brandon Miller a little bit more and LaMelo a little bit more as well. But I thought, tough night for Brandon. He really has not shot the ball from. I think he's played well in preseason.
Hmm.
He didn't. He struggled to shoot the ball from deep. Um, and tonight was no different. Several turnovers tonight too, including a really really bad one in the second half where he tried to like dribble left into like a gap, and Delano Blanton was there for an easy steal and pick six dunk, and Clifford called a timeout after that as the Celtics second and third stringers were sort of just running away, turning it into a dunk, a dunk contest. But yeah, Darian, any thoughts on Miller tonight? And then we can actually, maybe if we want to, even sort of like expand it to where he's been or how he's
Hmm.
looked from summer league to preseason.
Yeah, I think he reminds me a little bit of not in the way he plays or anything, but kind of similar to Mark Williams last year, who at summer league we were kind of worried about him. We were like, he's not going up strong enough. He's not doing this. He's not doing that. But come around this time, it was like, oh, he looks a little better. He's for at least for Mark Williams, he wasn't like the player he is now, but it was like, oh, I can see that he's been working since summer league. That's what I'll say. The same thing about Brandon Miller. The shot, I'm still not worried because his shot was what was the main thing advertised for him.
Mhm.
So my thought process, and it could be coping. I don't know yet. Let's get a few games into the season. But my thought process with that is he's adjusting. That his shot is what makes him him. His shot is what everybody was. That was the selling point. I think it will fall, in time. So that's kind of my hope with that. I'm glad that everything else is looking as good as it does. They're obviously, and I say that compared to rookies. I know sometimes when I say things like that, people think I'm comparing it to like people who are already established into the league. But compared to rookies, I think that he looks like he's come far along. I think it's very big for rookies to show. Every time I see you out, I see you expand your game to a certain degree, and I think he's doing that. If anything, I think that the turnovers really come from him trying to do too much.
Mhm.
Once again, and that's what rookies are going to do. They want to prove they belong on the floor. They want to prove they deserve the minutes. I get it. I think he's going to have to learn how to just kind of adjust to that. It probably looks so bad because our whole team, to an extent,
Yeah.
plays
Yeah.
that way. So it looks a little worse because it's like, oh, another turnover, and it's like, well, no, he is supposed to do those things. But yeah, I think he plays hard. He's an exceptional rebounder. I know that the stats at Alabama say, I think it was like 8.8 or something like that. So I knew he was a good rebounder. I just didn't realize like he's getting contact rebounds or jumping over people.
Mhm.
I appreciate that in his game because he could take the ball up the floor. And usually LaMelo's kind of the only person I trust because Terry he does it sometimes. Terry gets up there, but it's just it's not the same way the way LaMelo is able to run the lane at the same time. So I think Brandon Miller does a good job of that. He fits a lot better than also I expected as well. And just going talking about the preseason as a whole, I do feel like as a rookie, he's already shown that he's a guy that you can kind of I wouldn't say rely on, but you're a guy. You can have him go out there in those minutes and he will, succeed. He will do what he needs to do. We haven't seen the scoring prowess yet as far as just like him having the Brandon Miller game or whatever you want to call it. But we have seen him rebound well. We've seen him, kind of play make pretty well. We've seen him just be in the right spot at the right time a lot of the times. So I like what I see from him. Once again, I think the shot will come, but I I'm a little worried, but I know worried in the preseason a little too far. But I just wish I've seen a little more. I know that I feel like it's there every time he shoots it. I will say it looks like it's going to go in at least from my standpoint. I feel like every time he puts it up, like, oh, that looks like a good shot. It just doesn't fall. So that's why I'm not too concerned. But I definitely would, of course, like to see him hit a little more, all things considered. But overall, I think he's also adapting to his body. He's gotten bigger in 2 months. I think
Mhm.
that takes some time as well, but I think he's doing a pretty good job as a rookie. And we don't have to play any different to have him on the floor. I think that's probably the biggest thing is that Steve Clifford doesn't have to change anything to incorporate Brandon Miller. I think Brandon Miller plays exactly great in this. And if the offense ever changes, I foresee Brandon Miller being a type of player that he can adjust. He seems like a smart guy. Clifford raves about it. The players rave about it. So yeah, for the most part, I'm pretty happy with what I've seen from Brandon Miller. Just wish the shot would fall a little more.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, he is like Miller does strike me as a young prospect who, if he does hit some of his like higher end outcomes, he's
Mhm.
gonna be very, very scalable, very malleable because he can play without the ball. He projects as a, potentially again, if you're getting into some of the best case scenarios, a gravity bending movement shooter type prospect, right? Um, but he's gonna have to shoot the three a little bit better. And tonight was a tough. I think he was 1 of 4 in the mid range tonight. And like Richie and I, who's shout out Richie, he's producing this pod tonight just in the background. So the silent partner tonight with Richie. But we were talking about this on Twitter a couple of days ago. Like Miller, because he has the half court finishing concerns and the length advantage that he really leveraged to get some of his sort of like interior scoring production at Alabama is neutralized a little bit against NBA length and athleticism. Like he really has to like win in the mid range area, And even some of the sort of like nice 2 point, 2 feet in the paint type finishes he's had in preseason have come with him having to like fade away or pull up and drop coverage instead of like against drop coverage instead of going all the way downhill to the rim
Mhm.
or just being able to like explode over the top of someone. But I think he's like when he has time to set things up, he looks pretty like I think it's looked pretty good in terms of like his secondary creation or him making a play. Let's close that ESPN box score out. Very annoying. But apologies for that. But I thought tonight he got pressured. And when that happens with him, and this is something that to me always sort of like showed up on the tape with him at Alabama, like when he gets pressured, that's when not just like the mistakes happen, but that is also when um he loses some of his vision, like the things that like make him appealing as like a like jumbo 6'8", 6'9" pick and roll guy is that he should be able to scan and see over the top of defenses. And I just feel like whatever that passing window is, that vision cone, like I do think like it gets cut down, and that probably happens to a lot of people. It's very noticeable with Miller right now. So that to me is something that showed up before he got here.
Right.
I'm not that doesn't feel like a new concern. I think one of the things that has been exciting with Miller in preseason has been just like the versatility that he is sort of like in between these two with his size, with his movement, with his shooting, with some of the pick and roll capabilities. There's just like kind of a lot of things you can do with him. And like if he hits as a prospect, he's just going to be like a really versatile guy that you can again like copy and paste in so many different offenses. So just like setting him up and getting him into pick and roll, getting him into dribble handoffs off of movement. You see him doing a lot of like screen the screener action where he'll set a back screen or a flare screen, then he'll come off of a dribble handoff or he'll come off of a pin down after that. Those are like really good actions for him. And again, if he's hitting the shots off those, then all of a sudden that's going to open up the passing reads. Like you can see how this could fall into place, but he's also just going to have nights throughout the season like he had tonight too,
For
because like
sure. Uh-huh.
because he is jumper dependent. There are going to be some bad shooting nights, but like I would also say like once again I think he had 3 steals tonight. He had a handful of assists. um I think the transition passing has been very good. He had a nice like steal, hit ahead pass to Nick Smith Jr. for a layup in the second half. That was pretty nice. And I just think like in every game, he's had some nice live ball playmaking in transition, which is encouraging. Just like goes to show you, like when he has space and is playing heads up ball, Miller can be like a really nice like open court playmaker. So I think for the most part, I would say like uh, you know, uh, if you listen to this pod before or after the pick, like I wasn't like the biggest fan of Miller at 2. I liked him as a prospect, whatever, but I have found this preseason to be slightly encouraging and more so than summer league. I think he's played pretty well actually, and I'm finding myself to be like again slightly more encouraged than I was in the middle, late summer. So overall, thought Miller was pretty good with that. One thing we should touch on specific to tonight's game. I'm not sure if there's been any more information, Richie or Darian, if you've seen anything more regarding any updates on Frank Ntilikina, please let me know. I haven't seen anything yet, but in the second half of this game, Frank Ntilikina, the Hornets' backup point guard, and probably their best screen navigator, best perimeter defender, went down with a hyperextension of his left knee. He had a driving bucket that he scored on, and I think it was Wenyen Gabriel, one of the backup front court guys for the Celtics, was like sort of in his landing area a little bit. He landed awkwardly. Looked like the knee sort of like buckled on him a little bit. He crumpled over. And then needed to be helped off the court by the Charlotte's training staff. So not good. And yeah, Darian, just thoughts on let's hope for the best with Frank, but if they are going to be without Ntilikina for a little while, what are they missing without him? and how do you think they would have to reshuffle things at the point guard position? In part because like they've used Ntilikina and LaMelo together in some of these like hybrid lineups, right? These sort of like double
Mhm.
point guard lineups in preseason that I think may have been a part of like the recipe for them in the regular season too. But just again, hoping for the best with Frank, but if he is going to be out a significant portion, how does that impact this team?
I think it helps because mainly for the most part we're missing Cody Martin, so who they look to kind of fill that role, and I feel like a big part of why Frank Ntilikina is even here is because the injury that's so up in the air with Cody Martin, which I have no, I wish I had any idea of what's going on there, but I think it could work, especially considering the key thing you want to do is obviously not have Lamelo defend as hard or as much, and I think Frank Ntilikina when he's on the floor has been able to do that. I think what he's been doing offensively have thrown a lot of people, in my opinion, have thrown a lot of people off as to how valuable he can be to the team. Because I will say that he has been kind of chucking up shots or taking shots that is like Frank Ntilikina. I've watched you a lot of your career, and you don't typically do that. But it is preseason. He is also trying to make the roster, so it is what it is. But
He has
yeah,
been chucking, man. It's been weird.
and
Like
it's just like you've
it's been
never
a little
done
surprising.
that.
I don't
You've
want to. I
never
don't want to
done
like.
that.
I shouldn't be. I don't want to be mean to a guy who got hurt, but man, he has. There's been a couple games where it's like, wow, why is Frank's really getting
You
shots up tonight? Oh,
you've
that's been like one of the
never done.
surprises of preseason to me. I
No,
feel
for
like.
sure. Like it's gotten to the point where, and like you said, not to go, keep going on the injured guy, but it's gotten to the point where I've highly considered going back and see if I can like watch all his threes, like taking the last maybe year or so, because it was just like, dude, I know you're not, pulling up on three after a screen. Like I know you're not coming off a screen. I just know for a fact you were not doing that in Dallas. At least I know,
Mhm.
but yeah, but defensively, like I said, his offense has been throwing a lot of people off. I don't blame them. I'm one of those people who I've been a little upset with that. But what he provides defensively is something we don't have now. The fact that we have to rely on Frank Ntilikina or even Cody Martin was healthy to do what they do. That's a little, that tells you kind of where we are with that type of player. But it is what it is, but I think that it can be very beneficial. He does a really good job of just making the ball handle a little uneasy. I know tonight was maybe a little difficult. The Celtics are going to make a lot of teams look bad, and I know I believe you said that a little earlier. And I actually want to say that really quickly about Brandon Miller. If there's a team that can kind of contain Brandon Miller and make Brandon Miller kind of revert to some of the things we saw at Alabama, it would be a team like the Celtics where they got size and defensive skill all up and down the lineup. So there's really not a good at least where Brandon Miller is right now in his career, there's not a really good mismatch for him going against the Celtics. But with Frank Ntilikina, I hope for a speedy recovery. I hope everything's doing well because we desperately need that point of attack defense. For years, we've been relying on Terry to do that, and I've always felt bad for Terry because he looks bad, but it's like he shouldn't be doing it. It's like so.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and then of course Lamelo. Even though I think he's done I think he's done pretty well so far in I guess not a preseason over, but all preseason, I think he's been locked in on defense. And I never thought he was bad on defense. He was always trying to anticipate, and it just caused him to be out of place, reach, ball watch, those type of things. But I never felt like he was just like this guy that was a traffic cone. I just think he tried to do too much. It's like he was trying to do as much defending without actually just getting in a stance and defending.
Mhm.
But that's what Frank Ntilikina comes in. He's not going to be the guy to maybe get all the steals. He's not going to, but he's going to stay in front of his man. I think he's pretty quick on switches, and then you're pretty comfortable with him guarding most players up to a certain extent. So I hope we get him back because, like I said, outside of him, it's slim to none. And then if Cody Martin had a timeline, I would feel a little better. But
Whew,
we don't know anything
I'm
at
worried,
all.
man. Yeah, it is.
The fact that they brought Frank Ntilikina in and that because let's face it, as good as he's been defensively, his offense has just been so bad. Where if they had Cody Martin, I don't think they keep him. But you're kind of in a position where you absolutely have to because he at least gives you something on defense. But if he goes down with an injury, the only way you can address it now is through a trade. And to be honest, I don't think you're running out of people to pull off the street to do
Yeah.
what we need them to do, especially if you want to be a team to hopefully make the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, the two best perimeter defenders from last season's roster, Jalen McDaniels and Dennis Smith Jr.
Mhm.
on teams now. Toronto and Brooklyn respectively, and Brooklyn looks like they're going to have just a nasty,
Their
just a
defensive lineup
nasty
is
defense.
insane.
I remember earlier this summer, Richie and I were, or the offseason, we were doing I think like a free agency pod or something like that. It was when both it was right after DSJ had signed with Brooklyn, and we were like, well, unless they trade for Dame, this team is just going to be incredible defensively. Like there's just like no weak links. They can switch everything and like. Look, the Hornets the last 2 months of the season, they probably they got a little bit of luck in terms of opponent 3-point percentage. But the habits were good. The transition defense was much better. They were better in the half court. They were a top in terms of points allowed per possession starting March 1st through the end of the year. They were a top 8 defense in the NBA. And again, that's a small sample. It's late in the year. And again, there was shooting variance that went in their favor during that stretch. But like DSJ was a big part of that. I mean, Mark Williams and JT Thor were as well. But like DSJ's ball pressure, the screen navigation, the passing lane anticipation, like they're really going to miss that. And like, Ntilikina was supposed to be is supposed to be, and I don't think he's the same, the same defender as DSJ is just like such a special point of attack defender. He's so strong and athletic. But Ntilikina's got obviously like he's got a good frame and good length, and he can really slink around screens too. They do need that. That's like an important piece for them. And I was wondering if there were even some other Hornets fans that were sort of laughing. Like obviously Cliff has been very complimentary of Frankie Smokes so far in preseason, basically like just saying stuff that was identical to what he said about Michael Carter Williams during Cliff's last season in Charlotte too. Like the same, it was crack. I was having deja vu back to 2017, 2018 with some of the stuff Cliff was saying about Ntilikina, but let's hope it's not too serious. Let's hope it's just a hyperextension. The Hornets have a week off basically before the season starts, and Ed Sumner's in here, and he can be kind of like he could sort of play that role as well too, and also play next to LaMelo in some hybrid lineups. But it would really seem like even if Frank was healthy, like I was curious to see like how the second unit offense flowed, like who was like initiating actions. Like it does feel like Rozier, Hayward, whomever, like whatever veterans are handling the ball some, like they're gonna have to get into some staggered lineups with those guys as well. And if Ntilikina's out, then those lineups become even more pressing. I'd love to see Nick Smith get a chance in that role too, but it does feel like he's a little bit further down the pecking order. Though I thought Nick Smith had some nice moments tonight. All right, let's go ahead and touch on one last thing here, and then we can close it out. We're coming up on almost 30 minutes here, and thank you to everyone who is chiming in the comments here. Everything Buzz City, I appreciate you with the Ron Holland and Alexander Sarr are worth the pain. That's right. Looking ahead to the 2024. I have already started my scouting for that, including watching both Perth G League Ignite games. Alexander Sarr looks awesome.
Man, he looks amazing, dude.
He looks amazing.
He looks really good.
He's moving perfectly. He plays hard. He's got like all of the stretch DHO, front court playmaker stuff going on. And obviously Holland is like the 2024 draft, not the same thing. And as 2023, we'll have plenty of time to get into that. But yeah, Sarr and Holland would both, I was already thinking like, oh, how would Sarr and Mark Williams look like as a front court together?
With the Hornets, you have to think of what does our playoff roster look like, and then also what does our lottery roster look like.
So one of the few guys who you could consider to be part of both of those hypothetical rosters would be LaMelo Ball. Tonight, maybe not his best game of the preseason, though he had some nice flashy plays. I also thought LaMelo, once again, as we've seen, I think a fair amount actually in the preseason so far, getting to the rim tonight. I think he had 4 attempts at the rim. He had 2 and 1s, including a really nice finish where he got fouled by one of the Boston. I think it was Neemias Queta, who actually had a really nice game coming off the bench.
seen highlights of Nate Escada for the Celtics, and he's been a really good pickup for them.
He's been really, really good. Like they've got it's, I mean, obviously they're gonna miss Rob Williams, but they've just still
Yeah.
got a very deep center room with KP and Horford and now Namus Keita too. Keita, like whenever he gets playing time, like he plays well generally. He's just gotta be, find it's gonna be tough for him to find minutes,
Mhm.
probably even in the regular season. But LaMelo had 4 assists to guys at the rim tonight. He started the game off with a little drop off for a Mark Williams finish. That was nice. Off some scripted action. So it's just in general, Darian, what have you thought about LaMelo, his performance, his mentality, improvements, or maybe if there's something where you were sort of hoping to see an uptick or an improvement in that you haven't quite seen. But yeah, as we enter, man, it's hard to believe this is year 4 for him. But as we're on the doorstep of year 4 with LaMelo, thoughts on his preseason performance?
I think he's looking more and more comfortable. He's not looking like the young aspiring point guard anymore. I think he looks a little more mature, at least in his game. That's probably the biggest takeaway. Now that can encapsulate a lot of things, the way he's finishing, all defense, all of that. But I feel like by himself, he I feel like by himself he does a good job. I feel like he knows when to slow it. I see times where he'll take the ball off the rim, run down the court, but I feel like he has a better idea of, okay, this is when I'm going to run down the floor. This is when I'm going to slowly take the ball up the court and let my players, get in position. I think he's doing a better job of kind of being that leader on the floor. We all know, like, basketball wise, his talent wise, he was the guy. But I feel like he's carrying himself on the court more of as that guy. I think he's being a little smarter. Of course, there's still some things he does that I do not like. Ball watching is one of them, but I feel like everybody does it, and it is even harder for guys who are just eager to make a play. I wouldn't even take that as a downside of him. Anybody that really wants to make a play, you'll see them typically ball watching. So I'm not upset about that, but he does it a lot. And then the deep threes, he takes them a lot, but he makes them majority of the time. But sometimes it's like, now's not the time. So I wish he would kind of find that balance, which he will. It takes time. It's also
Yeah.
probably hard to try to find the balance when, especially in a game like this, the team is down, you're out there, you feel like it's up to you because there was lineups where we're down by 20 and LaMelo's the only like decent player on the floor. So of course he's probably going to feel like this, I have to do something. So I get it. It's just, obviously when the time comes, you don't want to wait and see to where in a playoff moment and he does it. That it's like better to nip it in the bud now. But overall, I think that he's just added maturity to his game. And that's not actually something I was expecting to see. If anything, I was expecting to see the finishing, and he's embraced it. That is something I also didn't expect. I wanted better finishing. I didn't think he would embrace it the way he has. I think that he's taking on the contact. He's sometimes kind of looking for it, expecting it. You see that, his certain moves he does in the air when he switches to the other hand. I think he had a good one against KP tonight. That was just in good anticipation of like kind of where KP was going to be. Overall, like I said, I just think that he's just matured. His game has matured a lot. We always knew the talent was there. It was just going to take some time of him learning, like, okay, this move works when I'm doing this drive. This move works here. And I think he's kind of finding out, okay, this is my rhythm. These are my moves. These are my go-tos. And yeah, I think that's the best thing you can ask for, especially as of right now with our roster in flux. Until we get a year in, year out, we know who's going to be here. I think it's going to be a little difficult for him to probably find like a really good balance. But as of right now, considering this team could go either way, I think he's doing a great job of just adjusting to that and just being that guy. Year 4, more of a veteran.
Yeah, you said I think the word you used was command, and I think
Yeah.
that's something that has jumped out. Like something that I think I've jotted down every preseason game has been like maybe not like, start to finish every outing he has, but there's a couple of possessions or the handful of possessions or whatever had in the half court where I think it's like obviously in transition he's magic. It's just like,
Mhm.
like that from like before he got to the NBA, it was like this guy is obviously like special, the vision, the audacity, the arm strength to throw some of these passes. It's absurd. Like he's I'll still just never forget the like underhand 70-foot scoop pass he had to his rookie year. It was just, again, he's done stuff that I've just never seen
The
before.
behind the back, I think it was to Mason Plumlee. That was like I've practiced that, and I was like, I don't see how he did it.
He's
That's
special
what
in
I
that.
think.
So it's the half court stuff. In the non sort of like scramble stuff, because also like in the
Right.
half court, when the defense gets scrambled, like LaMelo's a pretty awesome like mid chaos player. Like
Mhm.
he'll make the connecting pass to find a guy for a kick out three or whatever. I think the added rim pressure that he's shown some of in the preseason has opened up some slashing kicks. I think he's done a really nice job just when like if Boston was showing early help tonight, and so just like if the defense compresses, boom, he's going to pop that pass right out to the shooter on the left or the right wing, and try to get him steal a three basically. And so again, the processing very very good. We know he can play fast, but in terms of the command, I think he's done a nice job slowing down at times in the preseason. I don't know if that's ever like the sort of like slow mo, like apex,
Mhm.
creator stuff. I don't know if that's like ever gonna be like quite his thing. Like he's wired a little bit differently, like as tall as he is, and he can really like use his like height and length to his advantage, along with that handle and the passing vision. But like, he's just not he doesn't have like the force of Luca, and he doesn't have
Mhm.
the like nitro boost that Anthony Edwards has. So it's like he's not going to be able to just like turn the corner every single play and dunk on a center at the rim, nor is he going to be able to do the Luca like play at your own space and just sort of like roll to the middle of the lane every time and
Right.
get to where you want. Like, but like those guys are special, right? And like LaMelo is too, just in his own right. But I think, being able to be, like seeing drop coverage and being willing to like snake back. And then instead of just like settling for the runner, those like his like weird floaters that he makes and are like a good shot for him, but like being willing to sort of like try to like plant and go a little bit further and explore more. He's such a great free throw shooter. And like I know like he's had some bad injuries. The wrist, has been a concern. The ankle has been a concern, and so you do get worried of him just like the thought of him just like absorbing, 15 bad blows per game or whatever. But like, I mean, he's an incredible free throw shooter. He's got some of the best shooting touch on planet Earth. Like, you'd love for him to get to the line as much as possible, and it would simplify so many other things. My other hope for him would be too, just like in terms of like getting downhill, just like in trying to get into contact and get the ball up on the rim. Because like even if obviously it's great if he makes the shot. Obviously, it's great if he makes the shot and gets fouled, or gets fouled and doesn't make the shot. But even if he has to absorb some contact and he doesn't get the call and it doesn't go in, like Mark Williams has the ability to clean a lot of that stuff up. And so just like with putback dunks, and again, like if the opposing center is going to contest, then all of a sudden the front of the rim is open. And so just get that thing up. And obviously Richards is a very nice offensive rebounder
One of
too.
the best offensive rebounders in the league last year,
Yes.
statistically.
But
Mhm.
Williams with his length and the like
Mhm.
his ability to get off the floor quickly is just like such a I mean, he's an automatic, dunk guy in terms of like putbacks. I do think the presence of Williams has been important for their pick and roll game. We've seen Mark and LaMelo really hammer those empty corner ball screens in the pick and roll in preseason. That's basically been good for them in every game, save for tonight. Um, and I just think Williams, his presence as like a source of rim pressure, because he can dive, he can catch a lob, he can be a putback guy. Like I do think that's helping LaMelo out, and Williams being a guy that's like very receptive and can make tough catches, and like LaMelo is such a creative passer, and sometimes those windows are really really quick, and you've got to throw a tough hot pass to get in there, and like you're throwing it to Mark Williams, not Bismack Biyombo now. And I know everyone in Charlotte, we all love Biz, and obviously like LaMelo and LaBiz have a really good relationship too. So like I don't mean to knock Biz right now, but like it's just different,
Different
and that's
caliber of player, different a lot of things, really, a
yeah,
lot of things. Mark Williams is probably
different,
yeah, probably the
just
best center
different.
that he's had.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I mean, like Cody Zeller's the nice pick and roll center, but
Mhm.
diminished by the time LaMelo played with him. And even Cody's more of like a short roll handoff
Right.
guy, and Plumlee like an okay pick and roll guy, but probably even at his best when he's like doing, like facilitating from the elbow and being a handoff
Yeah.
hub, that type of stuff. So, thoughts on LaMelo and Mark Williams, like as a pick and roll duo, or just as a combo offensively for Charlotte?
I think it's going to be great for years to come. I think that those two guys, really are building some chemistry. You got to think Mark exploded around the time LaMelo was injured. That's when Mark really started to take off. We didn't get to really see a lot. So the fact that they've come this far in such an amount of time, I think that's good. I think that we've seen great signs of just how they're operating. I feel like every time they go down the floor, there's an adjustment. You can tell, like, okay, we did this last time, it didn't work. We'll do it again. Okay, it worked this time, or we did this time, it worked. Well, let's try, tinkering it so it can get better. You can tell that they're just playing off each other very well. It seems like they got a very good relationship. We've seen videos. I think it was Ron Boone who was showing the free throw contest. I think Mark Williams and LaMelo were both involved in. So it's good to know that they have that bond off the floor because we are seeing it on the floor. It makes all the sense in the world. If you were to tell me they don't talk, I would actually kind of be surprised by, based on how they operate. So yeah, I think it looks good. I also like to say I think it looks good with Nick Richards as well, which he's going to play a big part in this, especially considering, as of right now, if PJ's our third center. So it's going to be very important for Nick Richards to kind of, be involved in that as well. And I think he's doing a good job. He's being a lot more physical. So LaMelo, with both our centers, we've seen him with some bad centers. But I think that both of these guys, they all complement each other well. I still kind of want to see him with a pick and pop center, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Or just like it doesn't necessarily have to be a center, especially the way basketball is now. But I think that would be just lovely to watch. PJ's a little too inconsistent to call it that, and Thor is still just trying to get there. But overall, what we get, I like what we see. And then even Mark Williams is a decent passer. So sometimes when he rolls, I think he can see like the cutter. He can see the guy in the corner. So I think overall for our offense, it's gonna look good. We got some things to iron out, but overall I think it's gonna be great for the future.
Yeah, Williams, he's not like reinventing the wheel, but he's doing just enough sometimes in those like pockets of space on the short roll. And he's made a lot of progress in that. It was something he never did at Duke, and now he's doing it decently when needed against NBA defenses. To your point about like having like the pick and pop guy, like I don't think Kai Jones was ever set to be the pick and pop guy necessarily. But I think the hope for him was like you get a guy that can do anything. Like he could pop into space, he could dive all the way. And I mean, obviously,
And the defense would at least be scared. Like they at least can't just leave him open. Right.
And all of a sudden the coverage wouldn't know what's happening every time down the court. Like, is he going to slip? Is he going to pop? Is he going to dive? Like so anyways, yeah, I don't know. That obviously that has passed. It's not, it's not coming back anytime soon. But I do think, like in theory, that was the thought with drafting guys like Thor and Jones in the
exactly 100%,
which was the first draft they had, after picking LaMelo. So, all right, well, it was a gross game tonight. I think if we had done this pod after the Oklahoma City game, we would have maybe been a little bit more joyous. And you were just talking like Richards played great in that game, and that was another game that LaMelo was just like really in control of, especially that stint right before halftime. But we're not going to go back in time 5 days to discuss old preseason games. So as always, we're going to wrap it up here. And as always, please continue to support us by sharing our episodes with your friends, reviewing us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to our podcast. Once again, Darian, this was a lot of fun tonight. It was good. You and I have not been able to record together, so this was a good time. We'd like to thank you for joining us. I'd like to thank Richie for producing this thing in the background. And let's not forget, the Hornets season opener is Wednesday versus the Hawks. And before we sign off, Darian, is there anything you'd like to plug real quickly here at the end?
Just my YouTube channel, as you can see. Well, at least I see it. I don't know if everybody can see it, but the QR code for my YouTube channel, Trust the Buzz. I make Charlotte Hornets content, and so if you're interested in that, go ahead and check it out. I'm very excited for this Hawks game, though. Hawks are coming out with something to prove. So
yeah.
They think they're better than what people believe. So that's going to be that's not a team that we can just walk in there and think we're going to win. So that's actually to me a good test. So I'm excited for that. But yeah, just check out the YouTube channel, and I really appreciate you guys having me on. I love recording with you guys.
Absolutely, absolutely. We'll do it again sometime. I'm sure throughout what is going to be a long, long season. So with that, we are out. Thank you for listening to Buzzbeat, and go Hornets next Wednesday against Atlanta.